Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of Sonic and the Black Knight. I'm 100%ing this game through, even though it's a grind, and I hope you guys will join me. Now, I don't know what happened with the last video, but I hope this one goes much better. No, without further ado, let's go ahead and start up this episode. We begin our journey off by wandering into deep woods to try and find the Lady of the Lake so that she can help us out on our quest. Now, if this has any relation to Mario Odyssey's deep woods, I highly doubt it, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless. Now, while this level isn't necessarily too special or different than other levels, it is the first level to feature an auto-scrolling section. If you're unaware of what an auto-scroller is, it is a part of a level where the game will move for you automatically, and you kinda just have to go with the flow, and you can beat it or progress whenever it lets you. In this section, it's about 40 seconds, meaning that it's not too bad, but again, when you have to play the level over 10 plus times, it does add up to about 15-20 minutes of gameplay when you add the rest of the level to it. To end the auto-scroller off, though, we're abruptly interrupted by a cutscene where the carriage breaks due to some rocks and the horse runs away, never to be seen again. I hope he's still safe though, because that would be sad if he wasn't. What I am glad about is this burst ability that we have to kind of super speed through the level in short spurts that we don't necessarily want to walk through every single time, but it also makes you invincible to certain things such as traps, which is very interesting nonetheless, and allows us to progress through all of those traps that were there without taking damage. But I can't say the same for the villagers, who I somehow hit even though I wasn't even close to them. Man, this game is jank, but so are a lot of old games. After proceeding through the village, though, we run into another first. It happens to be something that a lot of D&D players and maybe RPG players know very well to be a mimic. However, I hadn't realized that was a mimic when I had started this level the first time and took damage to it a couple times before finally realizing that the burst ability just killed it automatically. Very convenient, but also very annoying. After completing the level several times and collecting all the rewards we needed, we got one of these appraisals that was for a flower, the Herb of Calm. It's also interesting that its description is basically the opposite of the poisonous flower, and the fact that it can be used in a lot of cuisines rather than trying to kill somebody. Alright, it's time for one of my favorite characters in this saga, and the character I actually had an action figure of, Sir Lancelot, or, as you may know him, Shadow, as a knight from this dimension.
I have found you, apprentice knight, enemy of my king.
Who the heck are you? Shadow?
I am Lancelot, Knight of the Round Table. I challenge you to a duel.
Some things never change.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing. It's just that he looks like trouble.
What shall it be? Will you abandon your sword and flee?
Sounds good to me.
Fool! A knight never flees a foe.
May I have your name, apprentice knight?
He is Knave the Hedgehog, and he accepts your challenge.
Hey, wait just a second here.
Very well then. Brace yourself, Knave the Hedgehog.
While Shadow is a very cool and very well-rated character, Lancelot, his counterpart, is also extremely awesome, but his fight not so much. It's a very short one and can end probably faster than the thought process of, oh, Shadow's a knight in this game? I mean, it makes sense. Now, while this was pretty quick, it did take me about 15 seconds. My fastest attempt, however, only took me about 9 point something, and was pretty consistent once I remembered how to do it. But the one problem I have with this is the amount of followers you get, even with getting a 5-star, is only about 12 maximum. But on average, I'd get about 8, because I'd have a 4-star if I messed up even slightly. The problem with that being, I would have to do this about 24 times. And while, again, it's not a long fight, it's just tedious having to do it over and over again. But after kicking his butt a bunch of times, we do manage to get out of here unscathed. Okay, maybe a little scathed, but still. After all the squabbling, though, we do actually manage to make it up to Valiant Warrior. Quite a grandiose title, compared to the last one at least. So, while I would normally let these cutscenes play out and allow you to watch them to see kind of what happens, this cutscene is over 2 minutes long, and I don't know that either one of us really want to sit here and watch that for that long, but I'll give you a quick rundown of how this went. We finally make it to the Lady of the Lake in the forest, and she does want to grant us the abilities we desire. However, she says that since this is all her fault, she feels like we need to be tested so that we can prove we're worthy of her power. So, she gives us 3 tests, or technically 4, but it's only listed as 3. First, we need to free the innocents of King Arthur's dungeon. They've been trapped there for quite a while and deserve to be let go. Secondly, we need to show compassion by giving people money, or rings. I'm not exactly sure how they work. But our third one is to defeat the enemies of the underworld of King Arthur's army. Now, this one's going to be fun, as it's just hacking and slashing. We just have to go through enemies as much as we want. The other two, however, sound kind of tedious, but aren't too bad, I suppose. Here, let me show you. The first mission I decided to take on is freeing the innocent people in King Arthur's castle, which it's not too difficult, but we get to cause a little bit of destruction and mayhem. We start off by hitting this ballista and knocking over this giant statue. For someone trying to save people, he seems to not really care about their safety, considering this thing could have crushed someone easily. But it managed to just get stuck upright above the little cave area over here, and we were able to just kind of jump off into the sewer system. Kind of an odd place to keep people stored, but I guess this is what they consider a dungeon. This is what you could also probably consider a gimmick level. Most of these levels have some sort of gimmick to go with them, but this one is kind of annoying. More annoying than some of the other ones that I've already said are annoying. In the fact that you have to break these walls, and every time you start to break one of these walls, it starts to spawn enemies that will attack you if you're not fast enough. Now, yeah, you can just jump backwards, but it kind of just wastes a lot of extra time to try and avoid enemy attacks that aren't even necessarily important. The only difference is that this last wall has a bomb behind it. How fun! But the fact that the bomb doesn't even break the wall is the worst part. That means I have to go back to slashing it and trying to get through to the stupid goal. And yes, the timer is correct. Each one of these runs is about a minute long. So yay! Bashing down doors and trying not to slash in it. It's my favorite! After smashing about every single statue and probably every wall in the entire castle, as well as every gate in the dungeon to smash out every single civilian, we finally get them to come with us. After a little bit of convincing and trying not to, slash them in the face with a sword, we move on to the next level of compassion, trying to give people our money. This level and the next are very similar in the fact that they're both giving quests. You have to give 20 rings to each civilian in order to get part of your reward for the level. Now, unlike the normal trades that give you rewards back, since this is a requirement to complete the level, and if you don't, you lose automatically, they don't give you anything back. But the more of them you get, the higher score you get, in which case you get more followers. So effectively, trading with more people is always going to be better. It took me a few attempts to figure out where all of them were, but once I did it enough, I was able to find out that there were exactly 9 people that you could trade with total in this level. And each attempt allowed me to get about 40 plus followers. Because the maximum of this level is about 35, that meant that this one wasn't going to be too bad. The other thing about this is that it didn't get as monotonous as some of the previous levels, as for the fact that it had several quick time events, and those keep my barbarian a little bit more engaged than just regular levels. After a while, you also start memorizing how many inputs you need and what type of inputs you need. Some people required a joystick, some people required a button, some people required both. Most of them usually picked one or the other though. Some of them also would require you to use A and B at the same time. However, I also tried to use the D-pad to see if it would, replace the joystick so I could just do it all in one hand, but it for some reason didn't seem to work, so we just kinda used the joystick and restarted the attempt we were on. Alrighty, so here's the second level of the same variety, with the difference being that we're not in the castle anymore. Instead, we're in the main village, probably outside of that area where all the escapes and refugees have gone after we rescued them. Who knows for sure. However, the Dark Knights seem to have followed us here, and yeah, what's the point in us getting them out if these guys are still just gonna keep spawning wherever they freaking feel like it? After enough attempts, we also find out that this level has only 9 people as well. I'm not complaining though, because 9 is more than enough. This level though requires 400 followers. However, with that being said, we do get more followers the better we do, scaling-wise, than the regular 350 level, so it only takes us about the same amount of attempts of about 10 or 11, since some of the attempts weren't quite as good as others. In fact, there were some runs that if we did good enough on, we got 65 points, but there weren't many of those. Well, would you look at that? After playing Robin Hood, we finally get our next title, the Steadfast Swordsman. Quite an upgrade from the Valiant Warrior, I suppose. Now, I wonder what's next. However, it requires us to get 5,000 followers. That's double what we currently have. Quite a jump if you ask me, but we're still going to keep trying. Alright, one more level. Time to take out as many enemies as we can in the forest. There's not got to be too many of them. Oh, 50. There's a lot. But that's kind of the point. We go in, swinging and slashing, using our gauge points to get us as much of a combo as possible. This is pretty satisfying, and honestly, taking these guys out makes me feel slightly better. You would think that maybe with all the slaughtering we're doing, though, it would be easier to get through with less enemies in some of these levels. But that's definitely not the case, as you'll see. I am going to go ahead and let some of this play out, as there is some very satisfying moments in this, and learning a lot of the movement for this level is quite cool. You can learn how to do a lot of these dash slashes, and jump over enemies in the specific manner as to not get hit by even the little bit of traps. Now, with that being said, I did fumble and fall into a lot of traps, but it was still cool to learn nonetheless. I don't think I ever managed to get a 5-star on this level, but the 400 followers at the end kind of made up for it. Wasn't nearly as fast as some of the other levels, but it still was pretty easy. After hacking and slashing time again, killing and killing, we finally make it out of the village, and no enemies to be seen. However, we do find a little girl where this cutscene plays.
It's close, but it seems you somehow made it.
Too easy. Piece of cake.
Do not let it go to your head, fool. What's wrong?
Hey, what's the matter? Are you lost or something?
A great big dragon attacked my village.
A dragon?
It took my mommy and my daddy and everybody away.
You know where the dragon is, kid?
It's in the big cave at the bottom of that mountain.
All right, I'm on it.
Wait, don't tell me you're going off to slay a dragon now.
Yes, we are.
What of the ladies' tests? You will never make it in time.
Yeah, maybe, but I play by my own rules. Remember that.
You fool.
Hang in there, kiddo. I'll get your folks back.
After all that, I suppose you could say that Sonic is actually selfless, and he does like taking care of other people. However, I suppose that also means we get to do an epic dragon fight when I come back. Because I'm not doing that today. This already took me 2 hours to record, which I know isn't a lot for some people, but for me, I've got a life, unfortunately. So, I'll have to go ahead and do that next time. Before we close off, I did a little bit of digging into some of the books and vaults in this game, and noticed that Shadow is known as the Knight of the Lake. Not really sure where this title comes from, but it's interesting that we have the Lady of the Lake and the Knight of the Lake. Wonder if somehow they're correlated. But, in any news, I hope that you guys have a great night, and I'll see you later.